Marc Raimondi for ESPN, joined today by the coach of the year, maybe the coach of the decade, Eric Nicksick. I mean, let's talk about this. Eric, you were just with Francis Ngannou in Saudi Arabia. Of course, we all know what happened there. It was maybe a loss on the scorecards, but not a loss in any other degree. And of course, we're just a few weeks removed from your fighter Sean Strickland beating Israel Adesanya for the UFC middleweight title. It's been a busy 6-7 weeks for you, Eric. You're back in Las Vegas now, back at Extreme Couture. What has the last like 6 weeks been like for you?
I mean, it's been a whirlwind in a lot of ways, but it's also been humbling to like a degree where you read all these positive things, these nice things, and it's great, but it's also a reminder to what got you here was your head down and grind mentality and just keep up the hard work. And furthermore, every one of our fighters that we work with, they deserve the time and the same amount of effort that you're putting in with everybody else. So once you get back in the gym, it's right back to the grind, with the rest of your team.
For sure. And I want to ask you a little bit about Strickland in a few minutes, but I want to start with Francis because that's kind of the big sports story. I mean, maybe even beyond sports, right? What Francis Ngannou did against Tyson Fury on Saturday in Saudi Arabia. Again, it was a split decision loss, but he knocked down Fury in the third round. It was a remarkable performance. I think one of the greatest performances in the history of combat sports, in the fact that a guy who was the UFC heavyweight champion, who, by the way, in his last fight in the UFC, used wrestling to win, then came out and arguably outboxed the best heavyweight boxer in the world, one of the best of all time in Tyson Fury. It's a movie. I mean, really is a movie, man. And the first thing I want to ask you is, just last week before the fight, you're in Saudi Arabia. There's a ton of luminaries there, celebrities, some of the greatest athletes in combat sports ever, boxing and MMA. What is that week like for you leading into the fight?
I mean, it was cool. It was the who's who of anybody and everybody within combat sports who you're rubbing elbows with at these big dinners and stuff. But all the while, you still have this daunting task at hand, and that's to go fight arguably the best heavyweight to ever do it in Tyson Fury. That was always in the back of your mind, and like little distractions were nice, like to get your mind off of those things. But all the while, there was this this guy waiting for you. We had to go fight that we had apparently no chance to go beat or compete against. So you allow yourself a little bit of time to be distracted because, I mean, honestly, Marc, you're out there and you had nothing else to do. We trained in the morning, and then we trained at 1 a.m. at night, and then you're in your hotel room and we were playing Madden and hanging out. So getting out about and seeing the city and being around, like, it was nice to see Randy. I was so pumped to have Randy Couture out there, So, but yeah, they did a magnificent job. They brought out, man, anybody and everybody within combat sports was in that ballroom that day. It was pretty cool.
Insane. The training camp. I want to ask you about this
Sure.
because what I found really interesting about the coaching situation and the training camp for Francis is he kind of stuck with the people that he trusts, right? He really didn't bring in a lot of outside coaches. Obviously, I know Mike Tyson was part of the camp and was there with you guys last week in Saudi Arabia, but you are an MMA coach, correct? Are you not? You're not really a boxing. I know that you know boxing, and I know Dewey Cooper is a fantastic striking coach. But for the most part, it was pretty much his MMA team with him in training camp for this fight, right?
Yeah, he brought on John Mumba from France, a guy that he knew when he first got to Paris. And again, like, he brought him on because he knew him, he trusted him, and he had a prior relationship with him. That was something that we sat down in July. We spoke about. It was the five of us, basically the team that you always see around Francis. And he debated on hiring a straight boxing coach. And I said to him, and I said to everybody in the room, I think you make Dewey the head coach. I trust Dewey. I think Dewey's quite capable of doing the job. But also, Dewey understood my idea on how the approach was going to be on versus Tyson Fury. I understood his approach. Our game plans really meshed together, and the way we wanted to attack it. I think having guys that were more MMA style and MMA related, were going to be the better approach rather than just a straight boxing coach who's going to come in and try to, ultimately, I think would have tried to make Francis outbox Tyson Fury, which I didn't think was the right idea, right approach. I think we wanted to stay on some of the nuances that we do really well within MMA and stay on kind of being unpredictable. And that's why you saw a lot of stance switching and different things that maybe we incorporate in MMA that most conventional boxers aren't accustomed to.
It was really fascinating to watch because I mean conventional wisdom, right, is this is Tyson Fury. He is the lineal heavyweight champion in boxing, and Francis is not a boxer. He has some experience training in boxing, but his sport is MMA, right? And we've seen, how many times have we seen this in the last few years, Eric, where a guy from MMA, whether it's an Anderson Silva or a Nate Diaz or a Tyron Woodley, they go and fight Jake Paul. And Jake Paul is not Tyson Fury. He's a YouTuber.
Right.
He's pretty good at boxing. But
Yeah.
he's not the lineal heavyweight champion like Tyson Fury is. So the conventional wisdom, right, was Francis is going to go in there. He's going to make a lot of money, but he's probably going to get his butt whooped. How do you kind of compartmentalize and keep that, the attitude that a lot of people have about this fight away from him, and how do you focus on just doing what you do?
I mean, honestly, God, I feel like we have one of the best athletes on the planet. We really do. And when people were so surprised to see him out wrestle Ciryl Gane, like, where did that come from? And I'm telling you, just every time we step in the gym, this guy's a sponge, and he's learning new things and he's trying new things out. So, I mean, yes, were we taken back by it? Yeah, a little bit. I mean, but we were surprised. I don't think so, because he's never really ceases to amaze me with his athletic prowess and what he's capable of doing. But I'll tell you what, man, the guy has two equalizers in those hands. When he hits you, people go to sleep. We always have that option available to us too. It was just really to find the right delivery mechanisms to the right approach, and how do we want to land, and how do we want to attack Tyson Fury, and he's able to accomplish all those things. It was crazy to watch it unfold. It literally was. I'm like, oh, dude, we're in this fight, and then he drops him. We're like, oh shit, we're gonna beat this guy, So it was amazing to see, man. But we're super blessed to have a guy like Francis.
It was your first time in a boxing corner?
Second, I've done one before, like I think it's like Texas Station. It was like a
Okay.
small thing. I've done a couple before in the past, but yeah, this one was, I mean, nothing compared to the magnitude that we had on Saturday. It was an unbelievable experience. Like, it was funny because Dewey and I were laughing, like, we didn't know what round it was half the time. Like, what round is this? Like, I mean, where are we at here in this fight? And there wasn't a 10-second clacker like in the first couple like rounds. We didn't hear a 10-second clacker right toward the end of the round. And then they weren't telling us when to get out of the cage. Like, usually they'll blow a whistle, like, all right, seconds out. The guy's just yelling at us. The ref's like, get out. We're like, we didn't know. Like, no one told us. So yeah, it was some some growing pains for sure.
It's a crazy story, man, because it's like you guys are not really supposed to be there, and not
No,
only were you there, you went out and he arguably beat the best in the world at
just
boxing.
bad news bears, bro.
It's remarkable. When he does get the knockdown in the third round, what is your emotion? What is Dewey saying? What are you guys saying in the corner?
We stayed pretty calm. Like, actually, Dewey and I are like, hey, back up. So the 8 count, or the count starts, because the ref is like pushing him off, and Francis over there dancing on him and stuff. And then when Francis is in the neutral corner, like, I looked over at him and I was like, hey, Bubba. I was like, he ain't no boogeyman, is he? And he's like, nah, he ain't no boogeyman. So I'm like, all right, bro, let's go. Let's get on this dude. So, and then credit to Dewey too, because going in the next round, Dewey got him. Dewey did a great job in the corner, man. But he got his breathing down, calmed him down, and then right away we were just telling him, like, hey, he's probably going to come out and try to get that one back. Like, his ego is going to be hurting on this one. So let's get back to, like, using our game plan, jabbing the chest, doing all the things that we were doing in the first couple rounds to just kind of try to outbox him in that regard, and just stay sharp in your defense.
When it was all over, did you get a chance to talk to Tyson or his team? Like, did they congratulate you guys, and what did they say?
Talked to the dad. I talked to Jon Fury. He was amazing. Like, he was so cool. And he just said right away, he's like, hey man, like, no disrespect, it's all business. I'm like, bro, I didn't take any disrespect from it. You guys are trying to sell a fight, for the most part. That's 99% of the banter anyways. They're trying to sell a fight. But he's like, dude, you guys did an awesome job. He was well prepared. Sugar Hill gave us a hug, and he was like, dude, great job. Everybody was very, very, very kind, very receptive to the game plan and what Francis was able to accomplish. I don't think that, like, I really don't feel like Tyson Fury was like taken back by it. I think that he knew what he had. And I think he took Francis very serious. I don't think he was, didn't take him lightly at all. And it was a great fight between the two guys.
In the aftermath of the fight, did you feel like Francis had won?
Um, yes and no. I knew, like, I was watching it from a boxing perspective, and I felt like when we knocked him down, I felt like Tyson kind of reverted to knowing, like, okay, I'm gonna have to kind of outpoint this guy and out footwork him and just box him. And I as the rounds were going on, I can tell Francis was a little worried about his cardio, but it wasn't showing at all. But then, like, he was like, I just felt like he was kind of reserving a little bit of something. And then we're like, dude, you're in great shape. Like, you're in amazing shape. Like, let's start pushing the pressure a little bit more in 8, 9, and 10. And I felt like he did that. And I guess looking back at it, I think we could have solidified our rounds a little bit better, and ended, like, with a little bit more flurries and a little bit more power punching to kind of optics and aesthetics and steal those rounds away, or seal the rounds up, if you will. But that's on us as coaches. Like, that's where we can get better. I think that's where Francis can get better for the future. But all in all, I wasn't like, oh, this is a robbery. I kind of felt like I knew that that the decision was going to go that way. But at the end of the day, man, like, I was really pulling for our guy. I felt like I've been saying this all week. Like, we might have lost the boxing match, but we definitely won the fight.
100%. How much involvement did Mike Tyson have in training camp and also over there with you guys?
I mean, not a whole lot. I think he did like 3 practices total with us, but within those practices, I mean, you gained a lot of knowledge. He helped immensely. He was like a consultant for us, and he definitely brought an energy and a vibe to the room, where you're just in awe, like, it's Mike Tyson. And you sat back and you listened and you watched, and some of the things that he was trying to apply with Francis, I think really, like, stuck to him, and as far as, like, some of the approach went. But all in all, it was Dewey that did all the heavy lifting that camp, and then Jon Moba that came in, and then I was like the third. I was traveling all over the world half the time, so but man, hats off to Dewey Cooper, man. This guy busted his butt this whole camp. And not only that, like, he had his own fighters that he was still dealing with, and he had Bubba Jenkins in the PFL finals. He was cornering the Bashrat brothers. He was flying all over the world and flying back for Francis and myself included. So, Dewey did a marvelous job this whole camp for him.
Yeah, one of the more underrated coaches, I would say, in MMA, right? Dewey Cooper.
Agreed.
So I want to ask you about. I asked you a little bit about the week and about fight night. Aside from Francis almost beating Tyson Fury, a lot of people say he did beat Tyson Fury. Was there a moment that stands out, whether it was like a celebrity interaction, a celebrity fighter interaction, anything you saw or you interacted with that you're going to really remember outside of the fight?
Yeah, mine was Lennox Lewis. He came up, said hello, shook my hand. We had a little bit of, like, I Randy Couture standing next to me, dude, and Lennox came up and said, "Hey, man, huge fan, love what you're doing." I damn near started crying, because, like, he was like one of my idols when it came to boxing. And I was actually making a point to somebody before I even knew Lennox was even there. I was like, I think Tyson is, yes, right up there, but Lennox Lewis is my number one, as far as the best heavyweight to ever do it, as far as, to me, just pure boxer. So him coming up and chopping it up with us. And he actually said, like, next time Francis boxes, he would love to be able to be a part of the camp and come out and help out. So that was really cool, man. I just reverted back to being a kid again and thinking of all those great fights that he had. And yeah, that was my kind of like, oh man, this is pretty cool moment.
Was that before or after the fight?
That was before. That was during the banquet. The night of the weigh-ins, when we all met up and had that big dinner. So yeah, it was cool.
That's crazy. Any interesting interactions that you saw, that you witnessed?
Not really. We were there very long. I didn't see Eminem, but he was there. I didn't see Connor. I didn't really get to run into any of those guys, but for the most part, man, like, everybody there was, you were just bumping elbows with the who's who of combat sports. I mean, it was unbelievable to see the amount of freaking legends that were flown out there for this event. That part alone, just, you're just sitting in a room of greatness. It was pretty cool to be a part of.
For sure. A couple more things, man, and thank you for taking the time. Still want to talk about Strickland, but now, Francis, it's like, you guys lived the movie, right, over the last few months and the last few years, and now he has this boxing thing under his belt. He almost beat Fury. He's in high demand. Eddie Hearn is talking about him already fighting Anthony Joshua. There's talk about Deontay Wilder maybe training in MMA. What is next for Francis Ngannou?
I mean, the world is his. He's going to call the shots. He's on the A side of every negotiation now. So it's really up to him. I know in my personal talks with him, and that he does want to get back to MMA. I know that he wants to get that fight with PFL. Again, I think to me, from my standpoint, Mark, I feel like it's the onus is kind of on PFL to make sure that they can find him a good enough opponent. What other options are out there, I don't know. And then the timeline, I don't know. But if he's going to fight first quarter of next year, I mean, it might even be easier just to get him another boxing match, to be quite honest with you. So we shall see, man. Of course, there's so many good things that he's doing within MMA. Like I would like to get back to, because I feel like we're just scratching the surface of his athletic ability. But again, like it's got to make sense for him. He's not gonna step over dollars to pick up dimes.
It's just so crazy because now he, like you said, the options are so vast. And that's not something that a lot of fighters who leave the UFC can say, right? Where, he can literally go do anything. I mean, he can go fight Joshua. He can go fight Wilder probably. He can go fight somebody in PFL. The question is who would that be? As you said, who is even available as far as heavyweights go. But it's really interesting to see what the heck's going to happen. I mean, he took the gamble, and he bet on himself, and it came up with the jackpot. And not many people can say that in the history of sports.
No, 100%. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it for everybody either. I think he's a rarity. He's a different breed, man. Like he really is. So, his story is still being written, but whenever they decide to do that movie about him, it's going to be pretty epic. And I think it's going to be hard for a lot of people to believe, what this guy's been through in his life. And, I actually said that to him going into round 10. I was like, bro, this is your destiny, man. Like this, I'm just so grateful to be a part of it and just watching your excellence in the way you're doing these things. And it was just real cool, man. Like he's literally just writing his movie script right now.
If you had to choose, would you say boxing first?
No, I mean, honestly, I don't care either way. I just, whatever he's comfortable with, whatever makes him happy, to be fair. But, if you're asking just my personal opinion of what I would love for him to do, yeah, I want him to fight MMA because that's what I do. And, that's the sport I'm involved in more than anything. But, if this guy's going to be generating $30 to $40 million his next boxing match, then, bro, do that, make generational changing money for yourself and your families and, everybody involved, we're all happy. So, whatever he decides to do, man, we've always had his back. So, and that's the game plan.
I've heard you say in other interviews that there still is a desire from him and from the team to fight Jon Jones. And I know that's hard because Jon Jones is under contract with the UFC. Francis was not the friendliest split between Francis and the UFC. There's no way that fight can happen, or you think that still could happen at some point down the line?
I mean, I think it can happen. I really do. I think anything can happen in this sport if you put your ego aside. I think that Dana and Hunter, they're smart businessmen. If they think that this is the fight to make, and they think they can generate enough money to do it, I was saying, hey, let's do it at Allegiant Stadium. Let's co-promote it. Let's get these guys together. You think Jon is the baddest man on the planet? Let's put him up. Let's see what we got. I think Jon's the best to ever do it. You and I have talked about this numerous times. This is no slide on Jon. This is me just wanting to compete and compete against the best who I think's ever done it. So if you want to talk about who's the baddest man on the planet, we can say that back and forth to a blue in the face, or we can put him in a cage and figure it out.
Okay, I did want to talk about your favorite student, Sean Strickland, of course. By the way, you have the big upset with Strickland over Adesanya, right, in Sydney, and then I think 7 weeks later is Francis almost beating Tyson Fury. What's bigger? What, like, for you? Like what was? Because I know that Strickland is kind of like a personal pet project for you in a certain sense, and Francis has been kind of in a way too. But what is bigger for you?
They're both very big. I guess you'd have to say Strickland because he actually won. We didn't get the win against Tyson, so that part does sting just a tad because it's a loss on his record. That's the first loss I've ever had with Francis. We were undefeated going into this whole thing. So, but yeah, both of them are equally as important and monumental. Monumental in the regards of, I was in the corner with arguably two of the biggest combat sports underdogs ever, and we pulled off one and damn near almost pulled off the other. So that would have been pretty cool to be, orchestrating two of the biggest upsets in combat sports history.
Did the UFC really call Strickland about fighting Khamzat Chimaev on short notice before, like just a few days after maybe he beat Adesanya?
Yeah, from my understanding, they did. That they just threw it out there to see if he'd be available. And then when Sean had asked me, I was like, I mean, to be honest with you, I was the one that kind of said no. I was like, bro, like I can't be there. I mean, we can go out there, but it just didn't make any sense to me whatsoever to take as a champion to take a short notice fight against a killer when you're, like Sean can fight anybody on any day's notice. We know that he's done it before in the past. But why is it our responsibility to go put our title on the line on short notice when we already did them a solid by fighting Izzy on 5.5 weeks notice, and the guy came out of that relatively unscathed, but he did have a infection in his foot and everything else. So just didn't sound right. Didn't feel right. It just felt like a trap, it felt like a big trap. So I told him, I said, no, I don't like the idea of it, but if you want to, I'm in. If that's how you feel, then we'll, whatever, I'll ride with you. And he said, no, you know what, bro, I'm glad you said no, because that was kind of my feeling too. And he goes, I don't think there's a reason for me to push it. So, and that was the last I heard of it.
You think Chimaev will be next?
I think so. I think that's the fight to make. I think you make the argument between him and Dricus. Those are really the only two right now because, Izzy had said, and I talked to Izzy this past week, man. I actually had a blast with the guy, man. He was really cool. And it was the first time I really got to hang out with him. And under the circumstances, I knew it was kind of awkward for him, but he didn't make it awkward at all. And we had good conversation and hung out. So from my understanding, he's going to take a little time off. It wasn't like he's going to take like 2 years off or anything like that, but he's going to kick back and take some time off. And so with that being said, I would imagine that the ones that make the most sense is Khamzat or DDP.
Who approached who? Did you approach Izzy or vice versa?
Oh no, like I mean, he was going to be in the corner, so like he came in the room and gave me a big old hug and we chopped it up. And then like I don't know who has the video, but he made like kind of like this funny little thing about it, like shaking my hand all stern. He's like, hi Eric, how are you? Again, good to see you, buddy. How was Sean? And like we're just kind of having a joke about the situation. But man, I've always liked the guy. I've always admired him. I love his work. That unfortunately part about it is we compete against each other and somebody's going to lose, somebody's going to win. And I think he took it graciously and it was just cool to hang out with him. I kept telling him how thankful I was for him to be there for Francis. I know it meant a lot to Francis to have him and both Kamaru there. Those guys taking the time and effort to travel all the way across the world to be there. It really meant a lot to all of us.
Timetable for Strickland, any idea when he might come back?
No, the UFC guys texted me after the fight versus Kamaru and just said, hey man, like looks like this is one we're trying to make. I said, all right, just give me an idea on timeline. And they said, we'll do. And that's all they said. And so they haven't told me anything. Sean's back in the gym. He's already sparring, training. He's back to normal. So they can call us and say, hey, we want to fight January, February. We'll be ready to go.